I'm going to show you the most delicious recipe for homemade soup. A beautiful bowl of steaming vegetable soup with cracked pasta in there. It's a kind of minestrone. My family absolutely love it. I'm going to show you how to make a very, very quick homemade pesto that is pungent and full of flavour. The two together are sublime. So we've got good recipes here, but I'm going to introduce you to your best friend in the kitchen, the freezer. And I really want to tell you the benefits of using frozen veggies, having them in your freezer, and allowing you to really make delicious dishes full of all the good stuff. First up, let's get the veggies. So let's have a little look what we've got here. This is a bag of sofrito. All the supermarkets are selling bags of chopped up carrot, onion, celery, stuff like that. I've actually got some lasagna here. This is fresh lasagna that you can actually freeze as well, but of course you can use dried pasta in this dish. I'll put that to one side. I've got frozen peas, a classic. I've got some frozen stock made from the leftover carcass of roast chicken dinner. Just put it in a pan, cover it with water, any little bits of sort of veggies, some herbs, boil it up for a couple of hours, and then put it into bags, and you can freeze it for another day. Great for risottos and soups. And then I've got some frozen broccoli here. I've got some broad beans here. I'm going to put the chicken stock to one side. In a pan, let's make a beautiful hearty soup. Put that on a heat. We're going to go in with some olive oil here, like that. I'm going to go in with the sofrito. Sometimes supermarkets call it chef's base as well, but essentially it's the same thing. So we're going to defrost that and start to fry it off. And we want to get that caramelization, that sweetness of flavour coming out of the veggies. So mix in your sofrito. We've got our veggies sort of sitting here ready and raring to go, so they can sit to one side. So while this sofrito starts to fry and caramelize, I want to talk to you about pesto. Now, look, the jarred pesto that you get in the supermarkets, super convenient, like you get all kinds of different pestos. So 10 out of 10 for convenience. And if I'm being really, really honest, the best ones that you can get are probably a 6 out of 10 on flavour, right? It's impossible to get any higher, right? Why? Because it's all about these fresh herbs. If I want to make something that's truly jaw-droppingly delicious, then I want to show you how utterly simple pesto can be. So, this is 100 grams of basil, and I'm going to throw it in there with the stalks, everything, okay? I'm going to go in with a handful of nuts. These happen to be pine nuts, right? But it could be almonds, it could be hazelnuts, right? It could be pistachios. I'm going to use one piece of Parmesan here. I'm going to use a knife to take the rind off, and I'll tell you about this later. And I'm just going to break up the Parmesan like that into the machine. 1 clove of garlic. Lid on, 40 seconds. So that's 30 seconds. Then I'm going to go in with some olive oil and just give it a little pulse. Homemade pesto, done in about 40 seconds. I don't need to season it with salt because the Parmesan's got plenty of salt. Also, that story about the freezer being your best friend, it is. Now, if you freeze homemade pesto, that is going to always be at least twice as good as anything in a jar. Why? Because the freezer can trap all those perfumes. It really is very, very good. It's just get a little freezer mold like that, fill it up. You can take like a little cube of frozen pesto and put it on garlic bread. You could put it on a chicken breast that you're roasting, or a lovely piece of grilled fish, salmon, anything like that. You can take a couple of cubes and toss it with some lovely tagliatelle. So this is about having homemade delicious food work hard for you. So if you whack this in the freezer, here's one that I froze. Look, that's what you get. Homemade, fresh, and without question going to be better than anything in a jar, right? Because it's frozen, not pasteurized. Okay, so that's a nice little hack that hopefully is getting you thinking. So the rest of this pesto, I'm just going to put into this bowl. Once you make pesto that quickly, you'll never buy the jarred stuff again, I'm telling you. So look, homemade pesto in 40 seconds, and also a batch in the freezer for a rainy day to go on all kinds of different things. So back to the pan here, I can hear we're starting to get some serious frying Can you hear that? Let's just talk about frozen vegetables. So I think there's a kind of idea out there that frozen veggies are down market, that are not as good, that they're sort of a lower quality. It's an interesting one. As far as nutrition is concerned, it's highly likely that frozen vegetables are more nutritious than fresh. How can frozen veg be more nutritious than fresh? Okay, let me explain. As soon as you pick something that's fresh, the graph of nutrition is starting to wane, right? And if you're thinking about something that's taken a week to get into the supermarket or the market, it's just going down and down and down. It might look fresh, but the nutrition's depleting, right? As soon as veggies for freezing are picked, they're normally frozen within 8 hours, right? So it captures and it traps that nutrition. So from a nutrition point of view, frozen veggies are epic. From a waste point of view, they're epic because I can go in and I can take a little handful and just put a bit more veg into a dish and I can leave that in the freezer. So from a waste point of view, epic. Convenience, epic. So look, back to the soup. For fun, actually not for fun, for thoughtfulness, that rind of Parmesan, often that goes in the bin, right? So it's hard and it's salty. But what if I put it in here, right? So you can use that as a seasoning flavour bomb. So Parmesan has that umami flavour. It's also very salty on the skin. But when you put it in a soup, you shouldn't have to season much at all, right? And then interestingly, after some nice simmering, that hard, inedible Parmesan rind actually softens up. And then you can actually slice it up and then you can eat it. You can even sort of fry it and make it crispy. It's very, very cool. Now I'm happy to add the next veggies. So I'm going to go in now with just a load, no specific amount, of broad beans, peas. I'll go in with some broccoli here. I'm going to go in with the chicken stock. Of course you can use stock cubes and boiling water, but homemade chicken stock is always going to be really, really delicious. So in we go, and it's all going to start defrosting. This is going to taste delicious in any soup, risotto, stew, curry. Like, it makes or breaks a dish. So in I go with 1.5 litres of lovely stock. So look, let that just melt down, bring it to a boil, and then I'll show you what to do next. So this has been simmering for about 15 minutes. Smells beautiful, thanks to that incredible chicken stock and that lovely base that we fried down. So look, you can see the colour of the frozen veg is beautiful. So what I want to show you now is the pasta. This is frozen lasagna sheets. I'm just showing you this as a nice little hack. So what's great about this is, because it's fresh, when I got it, you can get it on bargain or reduced or whatever you want to call it. Just put it in the freezer. It's really good. If you take it out of the freezer, they kind of defrost really quickly. You can use it for your lasagnas. Sometimes you have leftovers. So we're literally just going to break it all up badly, like that. Big bits, small bits. And it doesn't take much time to cook at all. So that just goes in. You could, of course, use dried pasta. And for me, personally, when I do this kind of soup, I get all the odds and sods, the random bits, smash them all up and just throw them in there. I like having small bits and I like having some big bits. So just stir that through. So that is looking and smelling very, very good. Nearly ready to go. Of course it's fresh, so it only needs like 3-4 minutes to cook. So let's get a couple of little bowls here. Let's get our lovely homemade pesto. So look, it's coming up. We're pretty much there. A little extra salt and a little bit of black pepper. Stir that through, it's going to be absolutely delicious. This is ready to serve, lovely people. Let's do it. A lovely bowl of hot steaming broth. Look, there is actually, let's pull that out. There's that Parmesan here. Let's just take that out. Chop that up and that'll just be a bomb of delicious seasoning and flavour that you can stir through there. So what I love to do is just finish that with a beautiful pesto. So there you go. Because you have to, a little bit of olive oil on top, and that is a beautiful dish. I've got one last little freezer hack for you. It's one of my favourite ones actually. When you buy fresh chilies, if you've got too many, it happens to me quite a lot, I just throw it into the freezer, right? And if you freeze a chili hard, you can just grab a grater and you can grate chili frozen over the top like this. Look at that. Can you see what it's doing? And once you've finished doing it, back in the freezer. Enough yapping. Time to get slurping. Let's get a bit of pasta, get a bit of pesto, a bit of broth. Oh yeah, it makes me feel really, really happy. Just gorgeous. And look, I've celebrated all things frozen today, and I think it's really important to do that. You know, being passionate about food, being a chef can't just be about farmers markets and growing. Like, it has to sort of look at the reality of life and convenience. And this is a really good one. And if you want to mix and match frozen with fresh asparagus in there, handful of spinach in there, of course, go for it. Swap out the pasta, go in with rice. Swap out the rice, go in with gnocchi. Swap out the gnocchi, go in with bread. Like you can just make this yours. But one thing is for sure, if you follow the little points of care in this recipe, you will be making some of the best soups of your life. Enjoy.